Hi, welcome to live stream Yoga with Louise, tips and cues to keep you safe and strong on the mat. Today we are going to be fashioning two fiery burn circuits. I want you to attack your workout with ego enthusiasm, work at a brisk but controlled pace to switch fat burning on. As always, play where you're comfortable, modify when you need to, take a rest when you need to. You ready? Let's hit the mat. We're going to find the halfway mark of our mat, and then I want you to stand in front of the halfway mark so that you've got a little bit of room to step back into a 4-point kneeling frame on the mat. Stand up nice and tall, legs in parallel, feet stacking directly underneath your hips. We're going to come into a little tabletop fold with a reach. You can keep a soft micro bend in the knees if you need it. Big breath in, you're going to hinge forward from the waist to come into a long tabletop stretch, floating your arms out in front, and inhale to stand up nice and tall. Try to keep the weight placement equal on both feet, starting to warm up the back chain of your legs. Reach long through the spine, reach long through the arms as you come into that fold. Last one like this, then we're going to tweak it slightly. The next time you come into the fold, give me a squat line sit, pressing your bum back towards the back end of the mat and giving me a nice generous bend in the knees. Trying to make your thighs more and more parallel with the floor every time you take that seat. So you're really starting to feel the glutes, you're feeling those hamstrings, you're feeling the quads. Next time you find yourself coming into the seat, place your hands on the mat and step back into a 4-point kneeling frame on the mat. We're coming into a double oil rigger. You can think of it as a modified push-up. You can either keep your feet connected to the mat, you could float them, or you could float and cross at the ankle. We're going to do a narrow push-up movement. So you're going to think of bending at the elbow. You're not going to chicken wing. You're going to hug in and maybe give it a small little bend. If you're feeling nice and strong, think chin and chest hovering off the floor. And you're going to shoot for between 5 to 10 repetitions, working at your pace. On your next journey down, find your way all the way down to the belly. Uncross the legs if you had them floating and crossed. We're going to stack the hands and the forearms one on top of the other. You're going to relax your forehead to the back of your hands, and we're going to come into a little bum flick here. We're going to work an alternating single, and then we will double up. So flicking one heel towards your bum, bringing the leg down, and then swapping sides. Rapid fire motion. Let's do 5 more single sets. Then let's double up and do both legs together. Then change your arm position on the mat. You're going to find your way onto the forearms. You're going to start to bend at the knees. You can bring your knees in slightly if you need to. We're going to do a little bum push back and then back to hovering on the forearms. Pressing back, bum to sky, and then a little forearm hold. Keep your core braced. Last one like this. We're going to end in the pushback. We're going to walk our way back to a 4-point kneeling frame on the mat, hands stacking directly underneath the shoulders, and then trying to keep as level as you can through the pelvis. We're going to slide the left leg behind us. We're going to do a raise to hip height and a tap back out. 10 times. You're going to lift and lower, trying to keep as stable as you can through the pelvis. Keeping your gaze down on the mat between the two thumbs and your neck and your spinal line nice and long. When you've done roughly 10 taps, we're going to end in the tapped position, and you're going to use this setup to find your way into a modified side plank. You're going to take your grounding leg, you're going to swivel it away from the midline, and you're going to sit up. You'll think of it as a high gate line or a modified side plank. You're going to raise the leg up to hip height, and then we're going to do a leg pull forward and back 10 times. Starting and stopping with the leg in line with your hip and not floating behind that control line. Nice and strong on your stabilizing arm. Let's do 5, 3, the last one. We're going to come into a knee tuck and back to extension 10 times. Then find your way back down to the mat. We are going to come from here into a side plank. So you can either hold here, you can raise the top arm up to the sky, or you can feed your bottom leg out, placing it in front, one leg stacked in front of the other, and you're going to try to hold strong for a slow count of 10, keeping your hips up nice and high and not dropping them towards the mat. Then unravel yourself to find your way back into a strong plank line. You're going to do a bare knee tap to the floor and back to plank 10 times. End on the knees. Find your way back into a high kneeling frame. Feet are stacking directly behind your knees, so watch that they're not flaring out or flaring in towards the midline. You're going to actively press into the tops of your feet. You're going to give me a small 12 o'clock tilt through the pelvis, pull that belly button in. You're going to flesh the fingertips together really loosely, creating a little basket behind your head. And keeping your knee and your trunk as tall as you can, you're going to come into an alternating elbow drop. Just making one elbow heavy to the floor and the other one reach for the sky. Looking for 10 rapid sets here. Once you've done 10, you're going to start with your elbows wide. With resistance, you're going to squeeze in towards the midline until it feels like your elbows are framing your head, and then back to stop. Remember to squeeze with resistance. We're going to end with the elbows nice and wide, and we're going to do a surrender step up. So keeping those hands behind the head, you're pressing forward slightly with your hands, and at the same time you're pressing back with your head. So there's resistance there. You're going to do a step up to stand and a step down. And we're going to lead on this side with the left leg. So we're stepping up and stepping down every time with the left leg first. You're shooting for between 5 to 10 repetitions. We're going to end in the standing frame. Relax your arms alongside your body to repeat the circuit again. Coming into your tabletop fold, framing your ears, and back to stand. Look for a brisker pace this time. Work with eager but controlled enthusiasm. Now start to add a bum pushback and a squat-like seat. The next time you find yourself taking that seat, place your hands on the mat and step back into a 4-point kneeling frame on the mat. We're coming into that oil rigger, feet grounded, feet floating or crossing at the ankle. And if you are crossing, change the cross this time and then begin to execute your little push-up. Maybe you're playing small and maybe a quarter or a halfway bend is enough for you. Maybe you're bringing it closer to the floor. Shoot for between 5 to 10 reps. Keeping belly to spine throughout. When you're done your 5 to 10 reps, end on the belly, uncross your legs, find a stacked arm position, bum flick singles. Five more sets to go. Last set, then we'll double up. And we're going to flick both together for 10. Then find your way onto the forearms, fisting the hands together. We're going to find that little bum push back. And then bring the weight forward again, hovering your body line just off the mat so that it feels like you're resting on your knees, on the tops of your feet, and just the forearms. Shoot for roughly 10 repetitions of this modified bum pushback, keeping belly to spine throughout. We're going to end in the bum pushback. You're going to walk your way back to a 4-point kneeling frame on the mat, finding a long tabletop stretch through the neck and the spine. We are going to stretch the right leg out behind us. We're going to float up to table and tap back out 10 times, keeping the control line, so not throwing the leg up, not popping and rotating through the right hip, controlling your drop and your return range. We're going to end in the tap and we're going to find our way into that modified side plank line. We're going to float the leg up to hip height and we're going to execute 10 leg pulls. Not kicking the leg, but rather pulling it forward using our lower abs and then releasing that contraction to bring the leg back. Then bring it to 10 knee tucks. You're going to try to find your way from here into a side plank hold of your choice, keeping those hips up nice and high and counting to 10 nice and slow. You're going to find your way into a full plank line from here. Core stays braced, arms stay nice and strong. We're going to tap the knees to the mat and back to plank 10 times. From here, you're going to find your way to a high kneeling frame on the mat. Look for that little 12 o'clock tilt. Tuck those hands behind the head. Look for that resistance between the head and the hands. And then start to execute your side to side elbow drop. Looking for some work into the sides of the trunks without pulling on the head or the neck. Then squeezing the elbows in towards the midline till you're framing the head, and then back to start. Working with resistance, maintaining your tall kneel, maintaining that small 12 o'clock tilt through the pelvis. And then we're going to come into our little step ups, and this time we're going to lead on the right leg. So stepping up and stepping down every time on the right. Shooting for between 5 to 10 step ups. We're going to end in a kneeling frame, and then you're going to find your way onto the back, and we're going to play on the back for the next while. So you're going to find a bridge-like setup on the mat. You're going to float your hands overhead, palms looking up to the sky. Let's start with the leg and the arm movement, and then if you're feeling strong, you can add the chest movement to your little combination move. So we're going to do an arm float and a single leg knee lift, and we'll alternate the leg line. So starting in neutral, you're going to find a small 12 o'clock tilt and imprint. You're going to pull your right knee to 90. You're going to float your arms alongside your hips, and then back to start. Coming into an alternating pattern, if you're feeling strong, as the knee comes up, lead your chest up off the mat, and then reground. So now, more work through the abs as you execute a single knee lift into the tabletop line, and a small little chest lift. Shoot for roughly 10 sets. The next time you draw one knee into table, hold it, bring its partner alongside, hold here for 10, 8, 6, stay here or add a little oblique reach side to side, trying to keep those shoulder blades floating just off the mat. Float back down to the mat, float your hands overhead, take a recovery breath or two in neutral. We're coming back into that knee draw, but this time we're going to double up. So either just doing the arm float and the knee draw to 90 and back, or adding a little chest lift into the mix as well. Hold your next one. Stay here, feeling that contraction, or add a little side to side oblique reach, trying to keep your shoulder blades hovering just off the mat. Then relax back down to the mat. Slide your legs into extension, finding a neutral spine. You can either keep the arms at your side, or you can open your arms into a T-frame with an active press into the shoulders and the palms, and then try to keep this T-frame arms for at least the next 4 exercises. We're going to start with the feet squeezing together along the midline. You're going to give me a bend on one side, grounding the foot, then knife edging as you open up into half a butterfly line, keeping as stable as you can through the pelvis, and then float back to start and begin to find an alternating pattern. Your challenge here is that as you come into the butterfly line on one side of the body, you try not to tip and roll all of your weight to one side. So focus on your 2 hip bones. Pretend that you've got to keep a little spirit level center aligned between those 2 points, and focus on the stability of your pelvis while you play with that drag and open, alternating side to side. Shoulder blades stay nice and heavy into the mat. Palms stay softly pressing into the mat. You're keeping a neutral spine position, but you are making that belly button nice and heavy to the mat. Now let's begin to double up. So starting with the legs squeezing together along the midline, you're going to bend the knees, ground the feet. The feet and the knees are still squeezing together. Then open up into a clamp, squeeze back shut, and extend the legs. So you're doing a little extension with a drag into a clamp, and then you are floating your way, or rather leading your way back to start. Remember to try to keep that squeeze along the midline every time the legs come together. We're going to end in the clam line. Then reground your feet and step them out to the outer quadrant on your mat. We're going to drop the knees as far as we can to one side, almost knife edging the feet and floating our head in the opposite direction, and we're going to start to find an alternating pattern. Depending on how limber you're feeling through the back, you might get your knees close to the floor, or they might be nowhere near to the floor. So just allow your lower back to set the drop range that works for you. Exhaling as you drop and twist away. Inhaling as you come back to the center line. Last one. We're going to keep our wide foot stance. Make sure that the feet are not too far away from you. We're coming into a wide bridge line, and we're going to look for some work into the glutes here. Keep the arms in T-frame if you can. Articulate up into your bridge. And at the height of your bridge, give yourself a nice squeeze into the glutes. Then soften through the glutes and drop halfway to the mat before piking back up. So you're going to drop and pike, keeping that wide leg stance and trying to keep the weight distribution on all 4 quadrants of your feet as you play with that drop and lift action. Shoot for roughly 10 repetitions. Once you've done 10, you're going to articulate back down nice and slowly. Find your way to neutral. Then use a 12 o'clock tilt to pull your knees to 90. Scoop to peel up, holding onto the back of your thighs. You're going to pull in with your hands towards your body line. And at the same time, make the legs heavy into the hands. Hold that contraction, pulling up and pushing at the same time and holding for 10. Then roll onto one side, setting yourself up nice and low to the mat and trying to find a long stack line, shoulders, hips, knees, ankles in one long line, not rolling forward, not rolling backward, using that pull-up through the lower abs to float the legs and hover them for at least a count of 20. Top hand could be connected to the floor, it could be relaxed on your hip, or you can float to sky. Then ease your way from here into a slow scissoring action, keeping those legs hovering at the same height. Find your way onto the back. Bring your legs into the table, scoop to peel onto the back of your thighs, pulling up, pressing back, stay here in table or float the legs to 90 without lifting your tailbone off the mat. So make that tailbone nice and heavy and hold, looking for that resistance. 10, 8, 6, 4, 2. Start to find a scissoring drop from here, holding onto the back chain of your nearest leg and dropping the other leg as far to the floor as you can. So you're going to determine your drop range, keeping that scoop. Last one. Roll onto your second side, assuming that nice low to the mat position. When you're ready, find a lift and hover, holding for a count of 20, top hand either connected to the mat, resting on your hip, or floating up to the sky in a half T frame. Now see if you can add a scissoring motion through the legs. Then roll onto your back. Bend your knees, ground your feet. From neutral, find your way into a tabletop knee draw. Scoop to peel head and shoulders off the mat, holding actively onto the back of your thighs, working with an extended leg line if you can. Make sure you're not lifting the tailbone off the mat. Hold. And then holding that scoop, start to come into a working scissoring line. Reconnect to the mat, bending your knees, grounding your feet as if you were setting yourself up for a bridge line, and float your hands overhead to repeat the circuit. Knee draw with an arm float and maybe a chest lift. So maybe just find the knee and the arm movement first. If that's going well, add the chest lift. Five more sets to go. Last one. As you draw your last leg up, keep it there. Bring its partner alongside, hold. Stay or add an oblique side to side reach. Reground to the mat. Float your hands overhead. Give yourself a recovery break or two. We're coming into the same movement pattern, but this time we're going to work both legs in unison. So maybe start with a double knee draw to table, floating your hands alongside your hips and back to the mat, or throw a chest lift in to your movement. Hold your next scoop. Maybe you're adding a side to side oblique reach. Float back down to the mat. Legs are long and lengthened, spine is in neutral, preferably a T-frame arm with an active press into the shoulders and the palms. You're going to bring the legs flush along the midline. You're going to bend on one side, open up into half a butterfly, stable through the pelvis, lead your way back. To repeat on the second side. Begin to find a working, eager, but controlled pace, making sure that you're not rolling the weight to one side as you open up into a butterfly line on one side of the body. So your press into your shoulders, your press into the sacrum stays equal throughout. Let's do one more set. Then we are going to double up and we're going to do this movement using the legs together. Keep that midline squeeze active as you bend to ground the feet. Then knife edge to open up into your clam. Close the clam and bring your legs back into extension. Shoot for roughly 10 repetitions. Thinking of that weight into the shoulders, the weight into the arms, the weight into the sacral area. Keep that midline squeeze active every time the legs come together. Let's do one more. We'll end with the legs wide in the clam line. And then you're going to step your feet wide onto the outer edges of the mat. And you're going to begin to find that alternating knee drop, floating your head in the opposite direction and shooting for roughly 10 repetitions. Last set, then we're coming from here into our working wide bridge. So when you're ready, keep those arms wide, articulate up into your bridge, activate those glutes, then soften to give me a halfway drop before you squeeze and pike back up 10 times. Keeping chin to chest, strong through the legs, strong through the core, shoulders and arms pressing into the mat. Bring it all the way down. Take a recovery breath or two in neutral. Then use a 12 o'clock tilt and imprint to pull your knees to table, scoop to peel up. Pull up with your hands bare back with the thighs and hold for 10. Then roll over onto side one, assuming a low to the mat position. Picking the top arm line that works for you. Lift your legs off the mat, hold them in parallel for 20 seconds. Stay here or start to add a little scissoring motion through the legs. Small little scissor, keeping both legs long and lengthened. Find your way back down, roll onto the back, bend your knees, ground your feet, take a recovery breath. When you're ready, use an echo of a tilt and imprint to pull your knees to 90, scoop to peel your chest off the mat. Hold onto the back of your thighs, make your tailbone heavy, extend the legs and hold. Stay here or start to find a scissor pattern, holding onto the back chain of one leg while dropping the other one towards the floor. Keeping your scoop with your shoulder blades off the mat. Last one. Find your way onto the second side, assuming a nice low to the mat position. Find your hovering leg position, hold for 20. Maybe adding a small little scissoring pattern here while holding the same distance from the mat. Find your way onto the back again, bending your knees and grounding the feet, giving yourself a recovery breath or two. When you're ready, you're going to use an echo of a tilt to draw your legs to 90. You're going to scoop to peel, head and shoulders off the mat, holding onto the back of your thighs, pulling up, bearing back, and then extending the legs, making your tailbone nice and heavy and holding. Then start to work the scissor pattern. Find your way onto the mat again. Bend your knees, ground your feet. We're going to ease our way from here into a little figure 4 stretch to end off today's practice. Set up that figure 4 on the right side of the body first, trying to keep nice and stable through the pelvis as you play. You're going to take a big breath in. On an exhale, you're going to float your left foot off the mat. You're going to bring that knee to 90 and you're going to hold there for 10. Keep that knee at 90. Start to creep your hands towards the front end of your mat and peel up into a small chest lift. Hold it for 10 and almost clawing into the mat with your fingertips. Then see if you can wrap both hands around the back of the left thigh. Reground head and shoulders to the mat. Pause here for 10. Just trying to relax your whole back line into the mat. Keep your chin line soft and relaxed. Then see if you can kick the sole of the left foot right up to the sky and hold there for a further count of 10. Keeping your chin line relaxed, not pointing your chin up towards the sky. So release that little tension spot at the nape of your neck. Then scoop to peel your chest off the mat. Bend the left knee and see if you can re-wrap your hands around the shin before you re-ground head and shoulders to the mat and hold for 10. Unravel, give yourself a little bug shake, and then we're going to rinse and repeat that little figure 4 stretch on the second side. Set up your figure 4 on the left, focusing on pelvic stability as you play. Big breath in, draw the right knee to 90 and hold for 10. Then start to creep your hands towards the top end of the mat. Peel your shoulders and your head off the mat. Claw your fingers into the mat and hold for 10. See if you can wrap your hands around the back of the right thigh. Re-ground head and shoulders to the mat and hold for 10. See if you can kick your right foot up to the sky and hold for 10. Add a little chest lift. Bend the right knee. See if you can wrap the hands around the right shin. Re-ground head and shoulders to the mat and hold for 10. Unravel, take yourself into a little bug shake. Then add one rock to come into a seat, sitting up nice and tall, lengthening through the spine as you hug your shin bones in towards your chest. Then start to lift all 10 toes off the mat. Start to drag the legs into extension, maybe pressing onto your shins or the top of your thighs as the legs come into extension. Maybe finding your way into a soft little pedal here. Maybe keeping your hands connected to the legs or seeing if you could drape them over your toes as you come into a soft little forward fold, looking to stretch and lengthen through the lower back and the back chain of your legs. Hold for a soft count of 10. Keeping belly to spine. Then sit up nice and tall. Bring your hands together in front of your heart to end off your playtime for today. Thank you so much for coming out and playing with me. Hope you enjoyed today's practice. Till next time, keep it light.